Going to introduce our judge here today. It's Cody Yandell. He's the ag teacher at Cimarron, judged at junior college in Kansas. Is that correct, Cody? Tonkawa, excuse me. Might as well be Kansas. You're close, right? Okay. So he's going to evaluate our livestock here today. We're ready for class 1, birds.
Biggie has one.
You have the mic?
Yep.
I give this one to Jack. Wow, brushes are all the two. Which one you got? Why?
Just say toss one.
I'm good.
No, before the next class,
Place
just
over
say
here.
who it is.
Place where they going in. Guys, remember that mic's on. Hey, this mic's on. Be quiet.
Well, a good way to start your guys' local show here. This young lady brings in the bird gill. It's one that when you stand off and study this thing from the side, you really appreciate how uniform this gill's made. One that's super level over that top, flexible off of both ends. One that maybe when you get in behind this one and study her, you'd like to just crack her open a little bit where she'll track a little bit more wider to her true shape up top. But a really nice way to start you off your Berkshire breed. Let's give her a nice round of applause.
Hey, put this down by there. A little bit. That'll good. That's good.
Right here.
On the rack.
Just say class winner.
Class 1 winner, Macy Carter. In the ring, Class 2, single entry.
Don't they have to be off for each other? First place.
Class 1 winner, Macy Carter. In the ring, Class 2.
We won't get into these until like the test is probably yours. Big livestock show. Open shows like for the big Texas ones and Kansas stuff, and that's where anybody can show.
Well, another really nice Burt gilt here in class 2. One that when you study this one maybe from his shoulder forward, you really appreciate how long and extended this one is. When this one gets out and walks, she does so with ease off of both ends. Maybe one we just like to crack them open, make them a little bit stouter when we get up and study them from behind and up on top of them. But a really nice single entry to this young man as well.
Class 2 winner is Jackson Healy. In the ring, Class 3.
They'll say the person that falls in first or whatever. Well,
Hey, this one's straight.
we don't have any fucking room. Oh my god.
We dropped these two in here in Class 3, and I'm going to lead off with the young man here in blue. I think when you study this thing from a structure standpoint, how massive this thing's built in terms of foot size and bone, you really appreciate that, and she carries that all the way up through her top. She's cracked open, she's bold, got plenty of muscle. Maybe one you'd like to trim up in terms of her jowl line a little bit, make her look a little bit more extended there. But when she gets out and moves, she does so with ease, and you can really appreciate that with one this size. The one in second here, the young man in green's driving, one in terms that might be just a little bit cleaner and more unique when you study that one from the shoulder forward. But when you study this one in terms of foot size and bone, she lacks that compared to your class winner. And you get in and study that one from behind, she just doesn't have as much natural base width as the young man in blue does. But two really high quality hogs. Let's give them both a nice round of applause.
Winner at Class 3 is Killian Mackey. Second place is Brandon Grant.
Reserve will go to the reserve. He'll say it. He'll select them. Yes.
We get out here for your birth drive, and I think all three of these gilts do an excellent job in representing the breed, and we get out here and we study them, and they're kind of different in their own right and kind. I think you've got a little bit more lighter weight here out of Class 1 that you really appreciate how flexible this thing is off of both ends. When she gets that thing's head up, she drives and looks really good from the side. Then you move into your middleweight, and one that in terms of just having a nice profile from the side, you really appreciate that. But we kind of questioned how true and massive that one was when we studied that up on top of that one in class. And then you move into your heavyweight here, and one that I said maybe in terms of through that jowl line isn't the most attractive as he gets out here and moves. But when you move in and study this one from behind, that's where you can really appreciate this one. Again, in terms of foot size, bone size, carries that all the way up to its top, where it's super bold and massive up top. I think for me today, we're going to use the heavier, powered, more muscled up one out of Class 3 to be your champion.
Second place in from that class. They're bringing second place in from that class. The champions class, they're bringing second place in so we can pick a reserve. So, I think, was that Killian in the blue? Yeah. Biggie.
We dropped that second place in, one that I think was relatively second in terms of the class winner out of that class, but I think he gets out here and fits up in this lineup really well. I think there's another one out here that when they get this one driving and gets a good look at this one, you just really appreciate how tall this one is at the point of its shoulder. Once it gets its head up and it gets a little bit more leveler out of its hip, you really appreciate the way it looks on the side profile, and I think it's carrying enough mass and muscle maybe for its weight where it's at today. The young lady out of Class 1 will be reserved.
Your champion Burt goes to Killian Mackey, sponsored by Monsi's Enterprises. And reserve champion goes to Macy Carter.
This young lady brings us our only red hog for today, and that doesn't take away from how good this one truly is. You want to talk about one that's flexible off of both ends and just gets out here and moves with ease. You really appreciate that about this one. Super stout when you study this one up at its skull and back from there. Super level top, big hip, square out of that and carries it all the way to the ground. I think you keep pushing on this one for another 20 days or so and get this one to the city. It could really handle some competition. Let's give this young lady a nice round of applause.
Your champion Durock is shown by Allie Bell, sponsored by Tyler and Haley Neighbors.
This young lady drops her Hamp Baron one that in terms of a side profile look, you really appreciate how flashy this one is. When she gets that one's head up and drives, that thing looks really good from the side. Super big forearm in that thing. And then you compare that up to how stout its skull is there where it meets his shoulder. And then you get in and study this one from behind. He sets his feet square from behind, super big and massive up top. Just a really nice, complete Hamp Bear for this young lady. Let's give her a nice round of applause.
Your champion Hamp is shown by Sydney Prince, sponsored by ADM. Your champion Poland is shown by Colt Pearson, sponsored by the Prince family, and reserve goes to Jalen Stowers.
Green's on. both ends the way she does, I think it's a really good class winner. Let's give her a nice round of applause as well.
Winner of Class 1, Summer Prince.
This young man brings us a bear here in Class 2, and you want to talk about one that's just massive. When you study this one at the foot and ground and study it on the way up, one that gets out here and he's level through that top. Maybe one I'd like to change, maybe just his back feet structure and how he carries himself there. I think this one's plenty extended when you study him from the side. I think maybe one that you just have to step back and look. Maybe he's a little too far in his condition compared to another, and that maybe doesn't show off how truly massive this one could be. But a really nice class winner. We'll look at both of them again here for a second, and then we'll pick you a champion spot.
Winner of Class 2, Brody Powell.
Oh, you just have more? Who's getting on the ladder? You're not. Okay, so you're not getting on the ladder.
Well, we get out here for champion spot, and obviously there's some differences in terms of where they're at, in terms of their weight and size right now. And I think you got to take that in comparison and then just break them down as an individual from there. I think there's one out here that maybe is carrying a little bit more to itself today than the other. And then I think there's another one out here that in terms of flexibility and reach does so quite handily maybe over the other. I think when you compare them to each other, they've got a lot of similarities. They're both long-bodied. They're both stout up high. They're both stout at their skull. But I think maybe one, when they get out here and drive, carries its top line a little bit better for me, holds itself together up high a little bit better. And again, I think when we push them on down the road, you may just question how that one's flexibility is going to be further down. I think for me today, I'm going to use the more flexible one that just holds himself together a little bit more. Your lightweight will be your champion.
Your champion spot is Summer Prince, sponsored by Nathan and Erica Powell, and reserve champion, Brody Powell.
Well, here in Class 1 Yorks, I think we got 3 super high quality ones. I think they're a little different in their right and kind, and I think there might be a couple of them out here that's a little closer than the other one maybe. I think for me today, I'm going to lead off with the young lady on the far side there in the blue. I think when you get up and study this one on top, you really appreciate this one's true shape and size up high, and couples that with a super deep center portion body there. Maybe not the most extended and clean through its shoulder blade forward, but I think this one's still plenty flexible off of both ends. I think it was close for second. The young lady here in the other blue shirt's going to be second. I think this one might have her beat in terms of how clean this one is from her shoulder forward, but I think when you get in and study these two from behind, she just doesn't have as much true natural width up high as your class winner does. The one here in third is one that you appreciate how flexible this thing is off of both ends. He gets that head up. This thing gives you a cool look from the side, but compared to the two in front of me, you just like to soften this one up in the middle part of his body there and bust him open a little bit through his rib cage compared to the two above him, but still a really nice hog to round out the class.
Winner of Class 1 York is Macy Carter. Second place, Shelby Prince. Third place, Brody Powell.
I was like, what are you doing?
Well, here in Class 2 York, we drop these two in here, and I think they're very similar in a lot of ways when you get out here and study them. They're both tall at the point of their shoulder. They're both flexible off of both ends. I think when you get out here and study them, you got to step in behind these things to maybe find the differences. I think there's one that just maybe carries a little bit more natural shape up high than the other. And then when you step off and study them from the side, I think this one might just be a little bit more deeper in the center portion of his body, a little bit square there when we talk about his hip-loin junction where that tail's set. And I think that might be where they separate themselves for me. I think they're both adequate in terms of foot and bone size, but for me today, the young man in yellow is going to have your class winner. The one here in second one is, you appreciate this one in terms of its length of body and how this thing gets out and moves. Like I said, I think when you step in and study him from behind, she just maybe doesn't have as much true shape and power up high as your class winner does. But two really nice pigs in this class. Let's give them both a nice round of applause.
Class 2 York winner, Brody Powell. Second place, Tinsley Castile.
two really nice class winners out here in your York Drive, and I think they match up really well for me. I think when you get out here and study them from the side, they're very similar in that aspect. They're super stout there behind their skull and carry that all the way back. I think when you step in and study these two on top is maybe where they sort the differences a little bit. I think one might have a little bit more shape just right up over its loin than the other, but then when you study them further down in terms of just depth of body and maybe being blown apart more in its center rib cage there, one might be a little bit better than that than the other, and I think that's probably where they're going to sort themselves for me today. The young lady out of Class 1 will be your champion.
Your champion York goes to Macy Carter, sponsored by Debbie Powell. And reserve champion goes to Brody Powell. Never mind. Hold on.
We dropped that second in here for reserve, and I think this one fits in here very well. Again, one that when she gets that thing's head up and driving, you really appreciate how extended it is from its shoulder blade forward. Plenty of foot and bone under this thing and still flexible off of both ends. I think maybe today when it gets out here and she gets that thing drove the way she does compared to the first place out of your Class 2, I think that one might just, again, be a little bit more deeper and bolder there through the center portion of its body. And I think for me today might have a little bit more foot and bone under it as well, and still carries itself awfully nice in terms of how that one carries itself from the side in terms of its back and through its hip and loin there, and still plenty square. I think it's super similar for reserve, but to me, the second best for me today will be the second out of your lightweights.
Reserve champion York goes to Shelby Prince.
I'm confused because he said we didn't have any. Just Mary. You know we were talking about you guys. On the market girls. We have a banner for reserve. Yeah. Okay.
Because there's more than one, like, there's a grand champion overall and a reserve grand.
Oh, of all the pigs. Okay, perfect. Because I was like, we didn't have a reserve for anything.
Right.
Perfect.
They get those nice pink ribbons.
Okay. So when they bring the guild and barrels in here, it does. Oh, it does.
Well, this young lady brings us our only light cross today, and one that can definitely handle some competition on down the road and some bigger class sizes. One that you appreciate this one's blade and how it's laid into that shoulder. One that's super flexible off of both ends, and then you get up and study this one on top of it, and it still has plenty of shape up high and super bold over that top. And I think when you study this one from the side, he's definitely deep enough in terms of his center portion of his body there. And I think when you study him from behind, he's super square and he sets his foot down square. And I think, like I said, this one could definitely handle some competition on down the road. Let's give her a nice round of applause.
Your champion light cross is shown by Macy Carter, sponsored by Dusty and Ray Torrey.
Yeah, I know. I bought a car too.
Well, three really nice dark crosses to start off Class 1 here, and I think they're all kind of different in their own right and kind, and when you study them and then break them down in their own individual ride, I think the young lady here going across the middle is going to have your class winner for me today. I think when we study him compared to the other two, he's just a little bit more free in the way he moves off of both ends. Laid in nice there through his angle and extended from his shoulder forward. You really appreciate that. And then when you get in and study him from behind, he's super square, super big in terms of his hip size there, and I think just puts everything together in a really good package. From there, I'm going to use the bigger belted gilt going across here in the middle. I think when you study this one in terms of muscle and power, you really appreciate that thing. I think when you study that one from the side, he maybe just wants to, or she just maybe wants to put everything together in a little bit more compact package, and it doesn't let her have such a nice flashy look from the side when this one gets out here and goes, but still plenty flexible to be as compact as that one is, and I think still a good place to fall into second. The one that's going to round out in third, I think one in terms of length of body, you really appreciate that. How this gilt carries herself. She's super flexible. I think she wants to just get a little bit shorter from her shoulder blade forward. And then maybe for me today, she's a little deeper in the portion of her body. But when you get in and study the true shape and muscle up high, maybe she's just lacking in that area compared to the two that beats her in class. But still a really nice extended one that you really like from the side. Let's give all three of them a nice round of applause.
Winner of Class 1 Dark Cross goes to Summer Prince. Second place, Haley Butzback. Third place, Macy Carter.
Well, here in Class 2, I think, again, some really high-quality dark crosses here to start. I think for me today, my class winner is going to be the young man with the predominantly white hog there in the middle. I think when you study this one from the side, you appreciate this one's lines and angles. I think he's super square in the way he's built, super stout up high. And then again, I think when he gets out here, maybe does so a little bit better than some. He's a little flexible off of both ends. He sets that tail head up high on top of that hip. And I think when he gets this one head up and he gets its driving, that thing just puts everything together in a really nice package. I think for second, it gets a little closer for me. I think all three of these hogs got plenty of power in them. I think they're all good and they're the way you study them from the side, but I think the flexibility and how they move off of their hind feet is kind of what sorts these three. I think the young man with the solid black hog here in the middle in terms of flexibility does so better maybe than the other two out here, and I think that's why he finds himself in the second hole, one that has plenty of shape and power up high. Just maybe you'd like to raise this one's tail just a little bit, make it a little bit more square out of that hip, but one that still gives you plenty of nice looks when he gets that thing out here and driving. I think then you get here in 3 and 4, and both these hogs have plenty of power. They're stout, and they look good from the side. I think as we drive them, though, you might be able to notice how they're a little bit more hindered on their rear two than maybe the two that beats them out here. I think there's one that in terms of just getting out and moves just a tad bit better, has plenty of foot and bone under. That's where he finds himself in third. The young man on the far side is going to be third in this class. The one here in fourth is one that you, in terms of just how wide and how busted open this one is, you really appreciate that. I think what finds her in the 4-hole for me today is yes, she has plenty of foot and bone under. I just like to get her to flex off of both ends a little bit better to move herself up higher. But a really nice set across, dart cross. Let's give them a nice round of applause.
Winner of Class 2 is Jackson Neely. Second place, Ryder Prince. Third place, Colt Pearson. And fourth place, Tinsley Castillo.
No, on the paper, I was just looking. Oh, yeah. I know we're far from that, but. Oh, I see. Yeah, you're correct. We do not. We do not. And then this is like the Supreme Heifer trophy.
Well, will we come over here when we do that?
So you need to come in for the pink ones because that's better.
Yeah, sure.
Well, two really nice dart crosses here in Class 3, and I think for me, I'm going to lead off with the young lady here in blue. I think when you study this one from the side, you really appreciate how this one's put together. Maybe you'd like to extend her and clean her up a little bit from her shoulder forward, but in terms of being stout up high and flexible off of both ends, you really appreciate that, and just puts everything together in a really nice smooth package from its shoulder back. The young man that's going to be here in second one, in terms when you get up and study this one from behind, you really appreciate how square and wide this one's built. I think when you get off and study this one from the side, we'd like to maybe just loosen her up in terms of her center portion of her body there, and then maybe just get her where she'll get out and go just a little bit better. But I think a really nice hog this young man's going to have fun with on down the road. Let's give all of them a nice round of applause.
Winner of Class 3 is Callie Sloat. Second place, Wiley Castile.
Well, out here in your heavyweights of your dart crosses, I think You got two that are very similar when you step off and study these things from the side to be this big and get out here and move the way they still do. I think you got to study them in terms of this muscle and true shape up high. I think there's both of them do really good in that. I think for me, when we get off and study them from the side, there might be one that carries itself a little bit better. I think a little bit stronger when we study this one from its shoulder back maybe. And I think that might be where they sort themselves for me today. The young man in the blue is going to have your class winner. I think this gilt's very good in terms of just being that big still and being that flexible off of both ends. I think maybe she's getting a little older in age and we'd like to clean her up from her shoulder forward just a little bit. But when you get in and study this one from behind, she definitely doesn't disappoint in how square and how wide this one's made. I think the young man in 2 brings us one here in terms of just how blown apart this thing is through his chest floor. You really appreciate that about this hog. I think maybe this one's just a little bit more compact when we talk about overall body length, and I think that might be what makes it looks a little bit more hindered out here in terms of how it moves off of its back feet. But you want to talk about one that's super wide when you get in and study this one. That one does that very well. Let's give both of them a nice round of applause.
Winner of Class 4 is Killian Mackey. Second place, Brody Powell.
Well, we get out here for Champion Dark Cross, and I think all 4 of these class winners match up really well. I think they all have their differences in kinds when we get out here and study them in terms when we study them from weight and size and maybe age. I think it comes down between a pair of them for me today. I think there's one that in terms of when you just study this thing from the sides, you fall in love with this thing. I think it's super extended from its shoulder forward and still puts everything together in a really nice package. And then when you get out here and the longer they drive, this one's super flexible off of both ends and super square. And then when you study this one at the ground and study it all the way up through its hip shape, it stays true to size and true to shape. And I think that might be what sorts them today. I think there's another one out here in terms of foot and bone size. You really appreciate that. You study this one from behind. You really appreciate how wide this one's built. But when he gets out here and you study him from the side, I just don't know if it's maybe quite as flashy and put together as maybe another one out here. And I think for me today, I'm going to use the one that's a little bit more flashy and more extended through it from its shoulder forward and still plenty flexible off of both ends. The young lady out of Class 1 will be your champion. we get out here for reserve and we drop the second place out of Class 1 in, and one that we talked about how shapely this thing was and how you appreciate how much mass this one had up tall. I think in class we talked about maybe this one just being a little bit more compact for me today than maybe compared to some of the others out here. I think it gets super close between a couple of them for reserve. I think there's one that maybe just has a little bit more punch to them when you study them from behind. And then when you get out and you get them moving on the side, there might be one that's just a little bit more attractive. Again, from its shoulder forward, maybe just puts everything together in a little bit more package. And the longer we drive, maybe just wants to be a little bit more flexible off of both ends for me today. But I think it's super close for reserve. But the young man with your Class 2 will be reserve.
Your champion Dark Cross is shown by Summer Prince, sponsored by Debbie Powell, and your reserve champion was shown by Jackson Neely. Your champion Burke was shown by Killian Mackey. Your champion Durock was shown by Allie Bell. Your champion Hamp was shown by Sydney Prince. Your champion Poland was shown by Colt Pearson. Your champion Spot was shown by Summer Prince. Your champion York was shown by Macy Carter. Your champion Light Cross was shown by Macy Carter. And your champion Dark Cross was shown by Summer Prince.
When we get out here for your Grand Champion Hog, and I think all these breeds were well represented today, and I think they're definitely going to be able to handle some competition as we move into Enid and even further down the road and get to the city. I think they all get out here and they match up really well for me. I think there's different preferences, and a different judge might pick them a different way. I like flexibility, and I like them to be able to look good when they get out and move, and I think all of these do that when you get out here and study them as their individual breed. I think when you get out here and study for Grand and Reserve, there's a trio of them that maybe sort themselves up higher for me. When we just study them from the ground and we build them functional from there up, they've got plenty of foot size, plenty of bone. They get out, they're flexible off of both ends, they're extended when we study them from their shoulder forward. They've got plenty big hips in them for their size, and I think when you get out here and you just put everything together, again, there's a few of them that race to the top for me. I think there's maybe one that just maybe when you step off and study this thing from the side, you just think this one's really good in the way it's put together. It's built really nice, puts everything together in a whole package. Maybe a little bit more extended and leveler when we study this one up high. And I think when you step in and study them from behind, this one may not be the biggest one out here today, but still has plenty of muscle and shape and cracked open through their chest floor for me today. I'll go out and select your champion, and then we'll bring in the reserve for that breed, and then we'll reevaluate you and get you a reserve overall.
Your grand champion was shown by Summer Prince, sponsored by Elton Campbell family and TNC Meats.
They're gonna take a picture after. Is Killian Emily's little brother?
We dropped the reserve dark cross in, and I think that pig matches up really well out here. I think it was super close for Grand and Reserve for me out here between another one that was maybe the respective winner in their breed. I think this one's super flexible off of both pins, still has enough power and mass up high. I think, like I said, this one where it got beat maybe and didn't get the Grand overall was just when we study this one from its shoulder blade forward. I like to extend it out just a little bit and clean it up through its neck and jowl line there. But it's still a really good one to be respected for your reserve. Your light cross will be your reserve overall.
Your reserve grand champion was shown by Macy Carter, sponsored by Sidwell Insurance Agency. We're now going to have junior swine showmanship. That's 6th grade and under.
Junior, this will be this one coming in.
Well, let's go ahead and give all four of these juniors a nice round of applause for showmanship here. I think all four of these kids do an excellent job, and there's maybe some experience difference of how long they've been in the ring, and all four of them do an excellent job at getting these hogs drove. And to me, showmanship's not one today, it's one at home, and you just get to show it off today. And I think all four of these kids, you can tell, have worked with these pigs very well. They get them out here, they get them going where they want to go. I think it comes down between a couple of them. I think maybe they're just a little bit more fierce, if you want to say, in the way they drive these pigs, and they find the gaps and they hit the holes. And I think that's important, especially as we move on down the road and you get into classes that might have 20 to 30 head in them. You got to be able to find those holes and get the best look of your pig to the judge that you can. Again, I think it comes down to a couple of them out here. They're both really good at doing that. They're both staring me down, and they're giving me a fierce look. And they get these pigs going where they want them to go. They're not just following the pig. But I think when we get out here, maybe one's just going a little bit more smoother in the way they move around the ring, maybe than the other. But I think all four of them do a really nice job. The lady with the solid black hog will be your champion.
Your champion junior swine showman is Sydney Prince, sponsored by First Bank and Trust Billings. We're not going to have intermediate showmanship. That's 7th, 8th, and 9th grade.
I don't have the right shoes. You don't have the right shoes? You better tell your mom to go get you some boots. No, Dad needs some boots, Mama. One side. Hold that button.
Here together. Maybe the questions is what sort them for me today. I think they both do an excellent job, like I said, getting these pigs drove. They're smooth in their motion. They keep them out off of me. They both brought them straight to me like I asked. I can get them in a corner and keep them calm, and that's something that you can definitely tell they've done their work at home. Again, both of them do a lights out job showing out here. For me today, I think what breaks it's just maybe the questions I ask Like I said, maybe one was a little bit more detailed than the other. The young man in the blue will be your champion showman.
Your champion intermediate showman is Jackson Neely. We'll now have senior showmanship. That's 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
You gotta tell him, yeah, he did.
Daisy, can you please stop moving around? Well, my shoe has to move.
There's a mic here. It's on the Garber Wolverine side. You can right up quiet. The mic can hear everything you say.
Well, out here for senior showmanship, I think all 5 of these kids do an excellent job and deserve a round of applause for sure. I think to be at a local show and your numbers aren't maybe very big, but to have this much competition and have this many good showmen, and we're just now in the first species of the day, is something that you need to commend yourself on, the parents, the ag teachers, the kids themselves, to get out here and, like I said, to drive the hogs the way they do. They're all very polite and they know their stuff. And that's something to be very proud of, especially as an ag teacher looking in and a dad to young kids that I hope to raise up in this industry one day. Hopefully it won't be in the pig barn. No offense, kids, but I'd like to maybe keep them in the sheep barn. They don't maybe smell quite as bad. But all these kids do an excellent job, and I think when you get out here and you break them down, they're all super smooth in the way they get these pigs out here and shown. They've all done an excellent job all the way throughout today. Not once did any of these kids maybe give me a bad look at their pigs. Then you move in and ask them questions. They're super knowledgeable about the species and what they do, and maybe they weren't to maybe the extent to some we're hoping the questions would be. But there's maybe one that answered them a little bit well, and I tried to move on to my next question, and I got told they weren't done talking yet. And that's good because they wanted me to know what I needed to know. And I think when you get out here and you, again, they all do an excellent job. And for me, most showmanship on most days breaks when I move in and ask my questions. The young lady right here in the middle will be your champion.
Your champion senior showman is Summer Prince, sponsored by P&K Equipment.
No, you still have 2 more speeches.
I'm gonna grab a coffee.
All right.
Thank you.
Do you need a water or
Nope,
anything?
we're good for now. Thank you.
Miss Mary. They got to take pictures of Summer. supreme pepper.
I don't.
There's no sheet.
Right there.
Yeah. So, you guys want to hold on to this? You want to hold on to this?
Well, this young man drops as a Dorset weather in here to start your lamb show, and one that when you step off and study this thing from the 3/4 angle here, you really appreciate how this one's just put together. He's super smooth, he's bowled up high, super big hip, it carries that down into his lower leg. Then you step off and study him from the side. He ties that neck in high on the top of that shoulder blade, just gives you a really nice look. And then you step in and study this one from behind. He's plenty powerful for the Dorset breed and super square at the ground. Maybe you'd like to put him on a little bit of bigger foot and bone, but that's being pretty picky on a really good one. Let's give him a nice round of applause.
Go ahead and take it to him.
Your champion Dorset is shown by Byron Birkenbile, sponsored by ADM.
I'm trying not to step and poop, and you guys are running around everywhere. But you?
So here you go.
Okay, wait, were you the one that had to hold that little thing? How about, okay, wait, and, okay, how about I hold this? You go, okay, can you leave a little, wait, how about I hold that? Because I'm the one at the end. No, how about you two?
Hey, we got to take turns taking the stuff to him because if you run up to him, the sheep are going to go crazy, okay? So just be easy when you walk up to him.
Okay. Here, you hold the banner. Can you move your hands to right here? Yeah, put your hands in the middle. So both of your hands.
Well, this young lady drops a Shrop weather in here, and one that, in terms of this one from the angles, you really appreciate how this one ties his angles up into his shoulder and through his blade there. One that's super extended in terms of his front 1/3. And then you move in and put your hands on this one. Man, he's wide backed. He's big from his shoulder all the way through his hip loin junction and carries that down to a true natural base width. One that when you study this one, you just really appreciate the look this one gives you. Super tall at the point of his shoulder. It's super square built. Really nice drop for this young lady. Let's give her a nice round of applause.
Your champion Shropshire was shown by Ashlyn Todd, sponsored by Garber Cooperative Association.
Can you stop going behind me because you're kicking me in my shoe? Okay, I'll be on there. Stop kicking hay in my shoe. Not hay.
Here you go, buddy.
It actually is. Actually, at least I have 2 feet and I don't have to do a 1,500 feet. This is actually not hay. This is actually something paddle bed. Well, everything's paddle bed. Animal bed. Animal bed. Okay, has your brother got a book? My bird is the same, so I don't know. Wait, and okay. They both are home.
That's okay. We gotta take turns, guys.
We don't know who hold it first.
It's okay. They'll just take it to Lucy here in a minute, okay?
I got mine. Oh, you come here. Get in the middle.
What's your name?
Well, you drop this young lady brings us a little ewe lamb here, and one that you appreciate how smooth this one's made when you step in and study this one. Man, is he wide at the ground and carries that natural base width. all the way up through his hip and loin there. And then you move in and put your hands on this girl. She's super